Congressman, welcome back to the program here. The Speaker's first big test comes in just 3 weeks or so when Congress must approve a spending bill or the government will shut down, the federal government. Do you expect that Speaker Johnson's going to reach a deal with President Biden and Democrats, or will the government be shut down?
Jason, it's all smiles in Washington. We finally have a speaker, but this is where some of the real issues come to play. We're days away from a government shutdown, but I think we're ready. I think we're ready to tackle some of the issues. You're going to see us pass more appropriations bills on the House side, and we need to get that ball rolling. I don't know how we prevent going into another continuing resolution. Probably a little more runway needs to happen before we pass something a little bit more long-term. But otherwise, step one is getting someone in the seat. Mike Johnson's going to do a good job of that. Now it's up to the members to work with Senate and ultimately the president to get some real meaningful things over the finish line for the American people.
Can that happen in the next 3 weeks?
I think we're going to need a little more time. I think you're going to see the House pass more appropriations bills. I don't think I've seen anything from the Senate yet. They certainly have to do their part as well. And then we got to come to the negotiating table. So, but step one is the House passing all of our 12 appropriations bills. I sit on the appropriations committee. We've done a lot of the legwork already,
right,
and it's exciting to see us finally get these last bills over the finish line from our end.
Congressman, you mentioned all smiles there in D.C. House Republicans, of course, have finally coalesced and united around Mike Johnson from Louisiana for Speaker there. But how united really is the party?
You know what? It's been a tough time. I mean, there's no doubt it's been chaos, to say the least, the last few weeks. But out of adversity comes the possibility to unite folks. And what I really like about Mike Johnson is he focuses on policy. So where some members may want more rhetoric, or maybe some members want less rhetoric, the policy is what unites the Republican Party. Some of this is the open borders, and this is a very real situation here in Texas. I have 2/3 of the Texas-Mexico border. It's the reason why I recently introduced a resolution with Senator Marco Rubio that deports anybody on a visa that promotes Hamas or any other terrorist organization. These threats that we're seeing abroad are very real, but these threats are also here at home, and we have to take them. On face value. So these are some of the things that I think the Speaker understands. We've had many excellent conversations on the border and things we need to secure the border, but we have to get back to work.
Let me ask you a little bit more about the speaker's race here. You opposed Jim Jordan as speaker. The new speaker, Mike Johnson, of course, has reportedly said he looks up to Jim Jordan as a mentor. What was it that made you say that Mike's okay, but Jim, I'm just not ready for yet?
Yeah, Jason, the fourth time is the charm, and we went through everyone else. And I was really what it upset me and a lot of members is rules that we had for 200 years. All of a sudden, we're going out the window as if there were nothing. And so this is something I think we got past, and we're ready to all unite, which we showed that. We all voted for Mike Johnson as a speaker with the idea of let's focus on the policy. Let's focus on the policy that unites us, less of this tearing the country down and more of bringing it together, because we have real problems. The border is certainly one. Inflation is certainly another. And then what we saw in Maine, this madman that it kills many people, wounded plenty others. Sadly, that reminds me so much of Uvalde. I've had many conversations with the local congressman there, Jared Golden, who's a Democrat, but it's just a tough time for our country in general, and we all need to come together to make sure we heal.
Let me ask you about the latest shooting in Maine. You said on X the other day that more needs to be done to keep our communities safe. A lot of people are going to say, like what?
Yes. Step one is we have to come to the realization that there is an epidemic that is happening in our country. This is real. And it has nothing to do with your race, your religion, whether you're in rural America or urban America, whether you're in the South or the North. There is a mental health crisis that is occurring. And until we understand this and we put the energy and the resources to it and not the politics, enough with the blame game, nothing, it's somebody else's fault or someone isn't doing enough, just coming to the table as adults and saying, here's the deal. We can both protect the Constitution and we can both protect our communities. It doesn't have to be either or. Until we do that as leaders, as a legislator, as leaders within our community, until that happens, we're only going to continue to see more of this carnage that's occurring. So my goal is, how do we keep our communities safe? And some ideas, adding more police officers on the force. I think that's important. Giving mental health, getting ahead of some of these shooters, when this guy walks into a mental health clinic and saying he's hearing voices, I mean, take that seriously. How do we make sure that we do that? And then also, how do we just make sure that the community is resilient, that we get back to helping each other, not tearing each other down?
Republicans have pushed back, though, on revoking the right to bear arms for somebody, even if they have gone to mental health treatment.
Once again, I think we can both protect the Constitution and you can protect your community. Folks need to have the ability to go out and express their constitutional rights. At the same time, if somebody is mentally ill, nobody wants them to have a firearm. I mean, these are some of the things that are basic in that kind of conversation. We have to protect one another, and we can do both. But we got to stop with the blame game. We got to start with members of Congress. I think it starts there, coming together. It's the reason why I started a caucus, a bipartisan caucus here in Congress that focuses on school safety, but it's not just schools; it's everywhere. These are some of the type of things that I'd like to see us get to solving the problem.
You and Senator Marco Rubio from Florida have a resolution that will revoke visas for individuals that express support for Hamas or any terrorist organization. Of course, that's already illegal, but this resolution calls on the Biden administration to really focus on that and enforce that right now. I guess I'm curious whether those people physically exist right now, because we just haven't seen them in the U.S.
They do exist, Jason, and we always think it won't happen to us, whether it's one of these shootings or whether it's a terrorist action or whether it's whatever it may be. It'll never happen to us wherever we live. We have to stop thinking like that. What happened in Israel can absolutely happen to us. And this open border crisis that we have, many cases, we do not know who's coming over. And in other cases, I'll give you an example. You've seen all these protests on college campuses throughout, these anti-Semitic protests that are praising Hamas and praising what Hamas did in some of those atrocities. These are the type of things that cannot be accepted here in the United States. And if anyone is on a visa and they openly promote a terrorist organization, their visa must immediately be revoked and they must immediately be deported, because they're a danger to our communities. They're a danger to America. This is something I think is very simple and straightforward. We need to start enforcing it.
I've seen some of those protests, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you may have seen others, but I don't see as much support of Hamas as I do support of the Gaza people and Israelis bombing civilian targets as opposed to military targets.
There's a difference between protecting the First Amendment and those that are advocating for peace or other organizations, and those that adamantly want to see Israel destroyed and the United States destroyed. There is a difference between that. And I have seen what ends up happening is the rhetoric spews, and the rhetoric turns from peaceful to very ugly very quickly. So anyone that is spewing hateful rhetoric that is on a visa, that is here on a visa visiting our country, should immediately be deported, because they're a danger to this country.
You represent 2/3 of the Texas-Mexico border, and I want to ask you about something the Texas House of Representatives just did. It's House Bill 4. They just passed this. It essentially lets local and state police detain individuals they think might be in this country illegally and send them back to the border. I'm curious, as a member of Congress, whether you think it's a good idea for local and state police to be doing this.
I'm torn on this one, Jason, because as a Texan, I know we're at the end of the road. I know we feel very frustrated that our communities are turned upside down because of the sheer number of folks coming over illegally and causing this chaotic environment. At the same time, it's not a sheriff or a deputy's job to be doing the federal government's job. And guess what? We have organizations for that. It's called Customs and Border Protection. And what I'd like to see is I'd like to see Border Patrol agents out of the processing center and back out in the the field. And I'll give you a more real example is, you know, in some of my counties are larger than states along the border, and they have 2 deputies to patrol that entire area. And so what I don't want to see is these local law enforcement agencies start focusing on federal issues instead of protecting local citizens inadvertently on there. So I'm of the mindset we need to hold the Biden administration accountable and get them to do the job. I'd also say, you know, recently we advocated for $37 million through federal grants to give to these local sheriffs to help them with that space.
Congressman, we always appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.